Yeah, how to get over a heartbreak. Uh, you realize that you don't need anybody else to be happy. You don't. Uh, you realize that the only reason you feel bad is because you expected something from that other person. You expected them to make you feel good all the time, feel happy, but you can't expect that from somebody. You know, you shouldn't depend on anybody else for your happiness. Your happiness should be coming from your own self by realizing that you're good the way you are. You're complete the way you are. You don't need somebody to be happy. Not even whatever Jesus that look, that's another conditioning that we've been told, right? You have to believe in God, you have to do this. And the reason why people do that is because they want to be comforted in the hardships of reality, right? It's hard. We have all kinds of anxieties about the future and family and friends. We use God as a comfort mechanism to feel better, and that's fine. The problem is that at the end of the day, you don't need that. You don't need to believe in God to be happy. You don't need to be married to be happy. You don't need a partner to be happy. You actually don't need anything to be happy except for yourself. And that's it. Once you recognize that, everything else is just sprinkles on the cake, right? I'm not saying that, shut down and don't talk to anybody, but I'm saying you're expecting too much from the world. Just let it be, right? We have all these expectations about the future. I gotta get this job, I have to go here, I have to do this, I have to move here. Just let it all go for a second, realize it's all here. That matters. It's not nothing else. Everything else is made up in our minds. You know, uh, I have to get this job to be successful. Why? It's because I have to be happy, right? A lot of times we have all these goals and expectations to be successful because we want to be happy. But you can be happy now without those things. And true happiness doesn't come from your accomplishments. It comes from recognizing that you're fine the way you are now, right? That you ought to be loved now, the way you are. You don't need somebody else, you know? And that's powerful. And it's kind of like letting go of these kinds of expectations. And that's why atheism as well is a very powerful thing. It's a powerful mindset to be an atheist because you no longer need those comforting fairy tales that make you feel good through the hardships. You can get through them on your own. You can still be happy on your own, and that takes a powerful mind. Didn't time and space emerge at the Big Bang? Possibly, yes. We don't know for sure. Quantum mechanics allows for the emergence of space and time, and has to do with entanglement. Entanglement might be the what makes up the fabric of space and time itself, and it's complicated, but you can, through entanglement, get more space and time, and this process can continually happen and doesn't and never stops. Um, anyway, yes. However, we don't know for sure. It's not. We don't have enough data yet to suggest that this must be the case. We have, beyond Einstein, we have very little certainty about many quantum mechanical ideas. God is the creator. But who created God? Right? Oh, God was never created. Okay, well then why does the universe need creation? It's very natural to say that somebody made all this. It looks, to an average person, they look around at the complexity and they're going to go, oh, wow, this must be made. But why? The only reason why you're saying that it must be made is because you don't understand how it is naturally made. You're assuming that it must be some kind of magic man. Why? Why can't we let that go and recognize that maybe the universe itself is the product of just natural causes? We kind of have to fight that human urge to succumb to these, human-centric ideas. We love to personify the world by making it human, right? A mommy and daddy banged and made the universe, right? The universe comes from a cosmic egg. God is a man. He's our father. Very human-centric ideas. And the more we look at the universe as revealed to us through science, it's not very human-centric at all. We're a tiny speck in a large, vast expanse that doesn't seem to have been produced with us in mind. Are quantum fields dependent on space? No. So time and space are not real things in the sense of beyond Einstein. They're not real things. They're mathematical representations. So, in other words, in quantum mechanics, you don't need time and space to be fundamental, right? They can be emergent. And all you need in quantum mechanics is a single state, quantum state, a wave function or quantum state, and nothing more. And with that single description, it encompasses the entirety of the universe. So, we always like to talk about the Big Bang and space and time, and you can't go into an eternal past. That stuff is all nonsense once you understand that. It's like, first grade math versus quantum mechanics. It's a primitive idea to think that time and space are fundamental. Thoughts on Elon? I think he's just a person like you and me. Is he wrong in many things? Absolutely. Is he right on some things? Yeah. But I don't judge somebody based on what they say. I judge somebody based on what they do. And from what I have seen, he's done a lot of work for building great companies that are really changing the world. So on his actions alone in that regard, I think he's a force of good in many ways, but also he's a force of bad in many other ways, just like every other person, right? All of us have the ability to be a good or evil or bad force on our surroundings. So even if you hate Elon Musk, or if you hate Trump or hate these people, you have to realize that they're just people. They shit the same as you. They pee the same as you. They're apes like you and me. And put aside all those societal impositions and realize that it's just a person, and they have opinions that could be wrong or right. Neil Tyson talking about veganism. When? I haven't seen that. Look, I think that a lot of smart people, are not looking into veganism seriously. They're just disregarding it because they think it's, nobody else is doing it, so why should I care? They're letting societal pressure get to them. But if you looked into it, I think that there are no good arguments against it. What are your thoughts on the shrouded Turin? It's just a cloth that seems to be made 1,000 years ago or so. A lot of people hype it up. A lot of Christians hype it up so much because that's the only thing they got. And look, if I was a Christian, I would do the same thing. I would hype up all this stuff because that's all they have in terms of any. See, Christians, they hide. Where they shine is where, in terms of how other people perceive them, where they shine is where ignorance is, right? They love to, take up those spaces of ignorance, gaps in our knowledge. There's mystery behind the Big Bang, right? So Christians, the first thing they say, well, who made the Big Bang, right? It's a great place to start because there's mystery there. And it's easy to portray yourself as if you know something that others don't about the issue, but they don't. Another one is the shrouded Turin, right? Oh, who made this? It must have been Jesus. How do you explain this? And because there's a lack of understanding about it, Christians are going to love to leverage that, and it doesn't work when they're facing somebody who's literate in basic science or history, but it works for the layman, right? Because they don't have that thought, that mental they're not thinking scientifically. Do you think some people are ashamed to accept human evolution? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's another good point you raise, right? A lot of Christians are so afraid of acknowledging the fact that we're just molecules. It's scary to them, and it's scary to many people. who don't understand that, right? Oh, we can't just be molecules. That's terrible. We can't just be monkeys. We can't just be apes. That's terrible. Because every time they make that assessment that it's terrible, they're always doing it in the sense that the egotistical sense, or looking at it from a human-centric point of view, where we must be the most important. We must play a central role in the universe. And if we don't, we don't matter. So, their entire worldview collapses because, nothing matters. See, if that same person would just actually face the scary monster of evolution and learn about it and really absorb and soak it in, it's astonishing, evolution, how it works. And our reflection on it is a force of humility and a force of reverence that you just can't get from religion. The fact that we did evolve, and we are the most recent iteration of humans over a vast sequence of evolutionary change. That's incredible. The fact that there are so many different processes and paths that our ancestors took to get to this moment, and think of the history of the earth and all the different species and trilobites and the dinosaurs and all kinds of amazing creatures that went extinct and survived and enable us to be here today. There's a very particular arrangement of events that had to happen. And understanding all that is not only helpful for understanding science, but it's also helpful for recognizing your place on the earth in the universe as a human being. It reinforces the fact that we are part of this natural sequence of events, this evolution through time. And nobody's making us or designing us, but we're just part of the process, and we just happen to be a natural byproduct of the process. That's astonishing. That's incredible. And the fact that so many people take it for granted is such a shame, such a tragedy. Because they're too scared initially, they're too scared to look into it, because they think that if we end up being apes, that nothing matters and we're just worthless. When the opposite is true. We're special because we're apes. And this particular ape of humans, we're special because, not because we were made by some guy who could have made anything, but because of the very particular set of events that had to happen. And if they didn't, we would be something completely different. That's powerful. To recognize and to just come to grips with that is so deeply moving. And to not have that, I feel bad for those people who don't want to accept it, all because they have some kind of religious ideology that's blocking their ability to recognize evolution. And the fact that consciousness seems to be part of just another physical process of the brain. People don't want to accept that. That's the new age of the evolution deniers of the past, right? Today it's the consciousness. Consciousness must be non-physical. Consciousness must be magic. But why? We're always looking as people. We're always looking for the spot where magic comes into play, right? Where's the spirit? Where's the magic? We must be magical somewhere, somehow. We can't just be matter. But if you look at the fact that we are matter, and the fact that we can do these incredible things because we're matter, That's magic to me. But instead, we're always looking for something more. Well, where's God come into all this? Where's our designer? Where's our creator? But the fact that there isn't a creator, the fact that you and me and every thought in my mind and everything around us is a byproduct of natural events, that's far more amazing than any kind of God could do. Because look, the one thing a God can't do is allow this to happen by pure chance, right? Because God, if it exists, always has the intention to make things. But the fact that all this happened through the natural odds, that's something that even God can't do. God did the bang. Well, the funny thing about the Big Bang is that a lot of people don't realize that quantum mechanics is a very simple model of the universe that makes it very simple for a universe to come about. Literally just a fluctuation. That's it. That's literally what the universe is, a fluctuation of a quantum wave, a field. And you can get an entire universe from that. From essentially nothing. You can get a universe like ours. And that's the thing that we're going to realize in the coming decades, that for so long we've actually contrived our own problem about the origin of the universe. We've had a human spin on it, in the sense that we've made it so complicated. We've over exaggerated how much needs to go into this to make a universe, when it's actually quite almost nothing. And just like everything else we're learning through science, the more we learn about the universe around us, the more we understand it, the simpler it becomes. In other words, the simpler it becomes to the more you recognize that you don't need as much complexity for us to come about, right? It's not that hard to see how we evolved and how we got here. But the ancients, relatively speaking, the ancient people in the past, they looked at the universe with so much awe, but it was coming from a place of hubris, right? And now with a modern perspective on the universe, understanding that there's billions of galaxies just like ours, and there's other planets like ours that you can walk on. There's all kinds of amazing things in the universe that make us look like nothing, right? So from this modern perspective, we have a more humble, we have more humility when we interrogate these things. When we ask these questions, right? What made this? Who designed this? We have more. We're coming at it with a more humble perspective versus our ancient ancestors, who looked at the stars and said, "Oh, there must be Orion. There must be somebody with a bow. There, planets must be God's work. They must be in perfect order." Now we're recognizing that no, none of that stuff makes any sense. For so long we've always tried to inject a God into the picture when it's not needed. And so religions and spiritualities and, all these things, psychic readings, tarot card, all these kinds of things, witchcraft, right? You see lots of witches now, oh, I'll put a spell on you, whatever. All these kinds of things are very human, but they are kind of like cry outs for, their cries for specialness, right? They want to feel like there's something divine about us, or something unique about us that we can tap into, we can feel important for. We have some kind of special access to some realm, that nobody else has. And so science has a way of kind of breaking down those things and kind of demoting us. And a lot of people don't like that. And, that's why a lot of Christians are so anti-science, because they have this perception that if we look into science, it demeans us, when the opposite is true. Right? Every time I look into the universe through science, and actually face those scary parts, I just feel way more appreciation, way more reverence, way more connected to the universe around me, and far more special than I ever could as a Christian or a Muslim or a witch. And you can't describe this to somebody. The sad part about this is that you can't describe this to somebody in a paragraph, right? It takes years and years of understanding and learning, and you can't tell somebody to think scientifically. They have to be taught, they have to be trained and disciplined, and it takes years. And the sad part is that a lot of people are not getting that training, and they're going on to social media, being bombarded by information. They can't decipher between what's right and wrong. They're getting lost. They've lost that. They don't have a scientific compass. And so they devalue science in the process, and they lose sight of that perspective that could make people feel deeply moved by being human. But that perspective almost never gets light. It never sees light in modern society. It's always the shocking content, stuff that makes you go, whoa, oh my god, that's stupid, that's crazy. The stuff that makes us angry, that gets the most likes, because for some reason humans love to feel mad at something, want to fight something, right? And that's pretty sad that is dominating on social media. That kind of mentality is dominating, and the other is not. Atheist and evangelical preaching. There's nothing wrong with preaching. Think about that. See, I'm not against preaching. I'm against having somebody preaching nonsense. That's what I'm against, right? I'm against ignorance. I'm not against preaching or having some kind of ideology. Look, atheists, there's something that religion offers that atheism can't. Well, it doesn't at the moment. And that's a kind of book or doctrine to live by. See? religious folks love religion because they have something to live by. It's bad, but it's something. And atheists don't have this. And a lot of atheists are so scared of kind of creating those kinds of doctrines that people so desperately want and crave, right? We crave as people something to live by. A code, a doctrine, morals, teaching, something. We look for role models. We look for father or mother figures. We look for someone else to help us. And atheism can't offer that. And it can. It doesn't right now because people are too scared. A lot of atheists themselves are scared of following religion in that sense and creating some kind of atheist Bible. Why don't we do that? Why don't we have a kind of secular doctrine in which we lay out a way and as to what our values should be, or at least an example of values that should be held. Atheism is a sad existence. But why? Right? Why do you think that? Atheism is sad. Why? Is it because you think that atheists just... Why? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me because nothing between an atheist and a Christian is different in the sense that they're both human beings who have wants and desires and goals and aspirations. There's nothing that Christianity does that offers that makes atheists unable to live properly. That doesn't make any sense. Atheism has no purpose. They're forced to be nihilists. What's the problem with nihilism? Right? Look, nihilism doesn't mean you're depressed. Nihilism simply means you recognize that there is no ultimate meaning in the universe. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're sad. It means you recognize that humanity isn't the main character of the universe. It's also the recognition, potentially, that you can create your own meaning for your life. And that's far more powerful of a way to live, in my eyes, than just following a book because it tells you to do that. Or pretending you have a purpose because you're simply told you have a purpose and not doing something about it and making purpose happen. See? I have plenty of purpose in my life, and how I obtain purpose is by interacting with others. Family, friends, they give me purpose. Why? Not because God made them, but because I enjoy them. That's it. See? Why do I do TikTok? Because I enjoy making videos. That's a kind of purpose, right? So it's not that atheists have no purpose. It's that they recognize that ultimately there doesn't seem to be a purpose that the universe inherently has for us. I mean, where is it? Where is this ultimate purpose? Thou shalt be married. Where is that purpose in the universe, right? In any objective sense. What is our purpose under religion? To worship God, right? That's pretty much the number one thing people tell me. Worship God. That's it. Think of that kind of purpose, right? Imagine being a human being who can do all these amazing things. We can invent technology. We can help billions of people. We can create nuclear fusion, artificial intelligence, and robotics. But our only purpose is to forget all that. Our only purpose, our main purpose, is to worship God forever and ever. You know, that doesn't seem like a very fun purpose to me. It doesn't seem very worthwhile, right? Because first of all, doing the same thing over and over again doesn't change anything. Secondly, God, if it exists, doesn't need to be worshipped, right? It already has enough worship. So the idea that we have to, our purpose must be to worship God, I think that's a mistake. I think it's a poor sense of purpose to me. And so the problem is twofold. Number one, atheists can have a sense of great purpose in their lives. And two, maybe your religion doesn't have a very good sense of purpose or a very pure sense of purpose. But a lot of, religion, a lot of religious don't want to talk about this kind of thing. They just want to sit there and say, oh no, atheists are sad. It's a quick jab, but you don't feel anything. Because there's no weight to it. Debate Darth Dawkins. I have already, and those. Look, the thing with the presuppositionalists is that they will attempt to suggest that without God you can't make sense of anything, right? They'll just utter those same phrases. You can't make sense of anything. Logic, reality, purpose, knowledge. Then you ask them why, and they say, well, God is the source of that. And you ask them how do they know that, and they say, well, we have revelation. And then we ask them how do they know that. They just say, well, because we do, right? Like there's no substance there when it comes to the presuppers. And secondly, look, we can. Nature is the source of all those things. Like nature itself, space, time, and energy and matter. That is itself could be the source of all those things. Logic, knowledge, everything. Nature is perfectly valid in terms of deriving those things. And so the Christian presupper is simply rejecting that with no reason. They just say, no, it's impossible. Why, right? We have to ask them why. We have to press on this thing. So again, it's a very flimsy argument, the presupp argument, because any bit of interrogation towards their side it just completely collapses their entire thing. That's why it's not taken seriously in real academia. Does quantum physics debunk determinism? No. Nothing debunks determinism. However, I would say that determinism is compatible with quantum physics because ultimately it could be the case that quantum mechanics is determined. There could be deterministic factors there. And so look, the problem about those kind of these kinds of questions, right? Determinism, free will. The problem is that we'll never be able to really know if there's any indeterminacy or determinacy in the universe. So I think that'll always be a question. And however, I do lean towards determinism because I don't think that I mean, the idea of free will in the libertarian sense, I don't think makes any sense to me. What is doing the freedom? What is having the freedom in that? You know, I couldn't tell you. That has to be unpacked more. The idea that something has freedom. I mean, what is that thing that has freedom? And oftentimes, I mean, the Christian will say spirit, right? But what's that? You know, these are hard questions, and I have lots of skepticism about that free will thing. Do you feel vegans have moral superiority? Well, look, depends on what you mean by superior. If you're saying that you have two situations, X and Y, which one's more moral, then yes. I would say that it is more moral, it is superior to not slaughter somebody than to slaughter them. I'd say that's superior. And yeah, but if you're going to suggest that I'm a better person, that's a different question. I don't think I'm a superior person than anybody. We're all people, but I think that there's certain values that are better than others, and the way people frame this question often is a way to kind of shine a negative light on the vegan, right? Because, you think you're superior to me? Is that why you're vegan? Right? That's a very common sentiment. When that's not at all the case. Although vegans tend to be very loud and abrasive in many ways, it doesn't mean that we think that we're better. And it's just that we're, look, we don't really question this deeply about other moral situations. Right? For example, in the Israel versus Palestine thing, very rarely do people say that I'm a better person because, I support Israel or support Palestine, right? It's a more nuanced debate than that. But when it comes to veganism, all of a sudden, it's that the vegan wants to be better than me. See how privileged they are? It's just a way to demean the vegan, and I think that's a bit uncharitable. So look, a lot of these questions require far more nuance than they're given, and it is sad that veganism is not offered the same time as other ideas. You're comparing veganism to a G side. I'm not. I was comparing the fact that people make certain judgments about others, not about G side, right? But if you want to go there, I would say that veganism is a far more important issue than what's going on in Israel, because 90 billion animals are being G-sided. 90 billion every year, and nobody says anything about that. And beyond that, I mean, the environment is being damaged because of non-vegans. So it's a far bigger problem, and far more damage is being caused because of non-vegans But again, nobody wants to talk about this. It's just people just wipe it right under the rug. They don't really want to see it because they think it's immutable. They think that meat is immutable and it must be forever enshrined in in our rights to consume meat. And that's nonsense. And we've been conditioned in that way as well. Veganism is not a privilege. The privilege is to sit there and do nothing. That's the privilege, to sit there, do nothing, and claim that I'm the bad guy. Veganism is not a privilege. Anybody can be vegan, right? And the poorest of the poor can be vegan. You can be vegan. It's not a privilege. It's the least we can do. Okay. Do you believe that sentience is immaterial? I think everything's material, yes. Now, the form that consciousness takes, in my view, is electrochemical signals flowing through our brains. We, as living beings, are bioelectric. That's how we are alive. There's literally biological electricity flowing through our bodies. There are ions flowing through our bodies and brains, and that's what makes us feel alive. That gives us the feeling of consciousness and awareness. And now we don't know the exact mechanism of this, but generally speaking, yes, this is most likely what's causing us to be conscious. It's the electrochemical processes in the brain and the body. And so yes, everything is material in my eyes. Again, and this is another avenue where a lot of Christians do not want to go to. They do not want to talk about this. They go, oh no, consciousness, non-physical, thoughts, non-physical. They just love to make those jumps because they don't want to accept anywhere that humanity isn't special, you know. Do you believe that all matter has sentience? No, not at all. There's a clear distinction to be made between this bottle and my brain, right? One is void of complex neurochemical and electrochemical processes. One isn't littered with it. And there are vast structures in my brain, and there are so many different synapses. I mean, trillions of synapses and the vast network of configurations of neurons. And to compare my brain to a bottle is absurd. They're vastly different organisms, and if we have AI's help with the jobs, things would be easier for humans. Yes, but there's a caveat there. There's this asterisk there. If we were to tomorrow deploy 2 billion robots into the workforce, it would be a mess. It'd be disasters, right? Look, the deployment of robots and AI into the workforce has to be very planned. It has to be strategic, and it has to be done the right way. And if it's not, it's going to be damaging for people. But if done in the right way, yes, I believe that if done in the correct way, in the future, if AI and robotics combined are able to facilitate all the labor in the world, well, then we don't have to do a damn thing. We can sit on our asses and we can have the robots work for us. And the revenue that they make goes directly to us. And we become like essentially stockholders or shareholders in the economy. And we can all divvy up that revenue, and we can have a very sustainable economy in which everybody has equal opportunity. The problem is that as much as that seems great, it has to be done the right way. And we don't know that way yet. And we don't know if it's going to properly work. So look, we're headed towards, we're just doing things, right? Like we're taking a risk right now. We're building on these robots, we're building all this AI, and nobody freaking knows what's going to happen. Not you, not me, not nobody. And all we can do is hope that we use technology for the best. And we elect leaders who understand the technology. That's the most important thing here, folks. Look, we that's why we as a people need to understand science and technology, because if we don't, we're going to elect the wrong people. And so, look, we have to give power to the right people. We have to empower the right people. And however, if we could properly utilize our science and technology, anything's possible. It literally is possible to have that happen. That dream scenario where we have no human labor and it's pure robotics and humans are doing their own thing and they're all happy. Well, not happy, but they're all able to have their basic needs met. I mean, that's a dream, and it's possible with science. But if we don't understand it, if we take it for granted, if we rebel against technology because we think it's demonic or woke, it's just going to delay any of that dream. You know? Yeah, look, guys, the next 5 years are going to be very, very chaotic. People are going to witness AI and robots take away their jobs, and they're going to get very angry. And what's going to happen is, if Trump's still in charge, or Republicans or the right-wing people are still in charge, they're likely not going to be very pro-technology and pro-science, right? I mean, look, as we can see right now, our administration is not very pro-science. They're very anti-science. That's a problem, right? So, look, Trump doesn't understand AI. They don't... we have to elect the right people, and if we don't, we're fucked, But I will tell you that people are going to be very angry if it's not properly managed, if we don't have the right leadership. People are going to get pissed, right? The next 3, 4, 5 years when AI takes all of our jobs away. And robots. So, how this will all unfold, I don't know, but all I know is that we have to understand science and technology better. We just have to. We're at this moment, we're not. We're just dropping the ball right now. And economically right now, look, people voted for Trump because they wanted more money. It's simple as that, folks, right? The American people vote based on their wallet. Am I doing okay or am I doing bad? If I'm doing bad, I vote for the opposite of who's in charge, right? If I don't have enough money, I vote for whoever is going to be different. And that's why they voted for Obama. That's why they voted for Trump. So look, we're letting that get in our way. I mean, it's not, we can't really control that. But that's a factor. People are under lots of financial stress in America, and we're not focused, right? We're only focused on who's going to give us more, lower the gas prices, lower the egg prices, and that's a problem. So. So, but look, everybody's focused. Everybody's busy with their own goals and ideologies and shit. How likely is it for all of the people to unite on some level? We're so damn polarized today. And we're getting further polarized because we don't understand science. We don't understand the virtue of listening and communicating and that part of that. Because human nature is let's win, let's make the other side look like shit, let's destroy them, right? That's the human nature. We want to just win, fight. But in modern society, that has to not be the focus. The focus has to be let's communicate, let's talk. We're not doing that. That's why we're so polarized, right? Because look, in America, Kamala supporters don't talk to Trump supporters. They don't talk to each other. They yell at each other. They fight. They don't talk. They don't educate each other. They don't listen. They just go, "You're bad. You're racist. You're this. You're that." And that's why we're so polarized. And having a scientific mindset teaches that kind of communication. That there's virtue in that. Because a scientist doesn't just go, "Oh, that's stupid, that's a bad idea." They investigate that idea. They actually take the time to listen and understand what the other guy is saying, because they understand that they might be wrong about what they believe, and that they're not so upset if they have to change their mind, right? They're not so fearful of changing their mind or being wrong, right? And for some reason, a lot of Americans are so fearful of being wrong, and that's why they're so they're so hateful. They're so abrasive towards the other side. And That's why we'll never, until we understand that we have to communicate, we're always going to be polarized. But just think of how better off we'd be if we could just talk and properly communicate to each other. Just think of how much better off we'd all be if we all just listened and communicated more. And not just bickered and yelled and fought. Think about that. Just think. And both sides are at fault here. I don't care about your side, which side. Both sides are bad at this. Every side's bad at this. We have to communicate more. You know, as much as you hate the other side and think they're wrong and racist or woke or liberal or this, listen, communicate, educate. That's it. That's the solution. But what do I know? I'm just a random streamer.